Welcome everyone to PopCultX episode 43. We're back once again, Gabriel and Danny bringing you all the talk and news, pop culture from a Gen X perspective. So let's go ahead and get started. I know I'm already heated, so why don't we go ahead and jump into it? I spent the day on Twitter.
Yeah, Gabe was, before we started hit recording, he was getting warmed up. We saw him in the corner, you know.
I'm already sweating from anger. So the first thing that kind of caught my attention on Twitter today that I thought we for sure need to talk about is Thandie Newton sort of went off on Sean Penn, which I thought, oh, that's odd because they're both successful actors and she doesn't seem to be a controversial figure. You know, I never really see her in the news outside of her being an amazing actress. So she kind of said that he was rambling and being a kind of an idiot. And so I looked up the article that she referenced, and it's an article from Variety saying that Sean Penn is quoted as having saying that men have become quite feminized and cowardly. I'm pulling up the quote here that men have become quite feminized. He says in this article that he's in the club that believes that men in American culture have become wildly feminized. I don't think that being a brute or having insensitivity or disrespect for women is anything to do with masculinity or ever did. But I don't think that in order to be fair to women, we should become them. So this is, I think, quite a controversial statement coming from someone who is really well known as being a volatile, sort of toxic man. Mm-hmm. He famously, whether or not we accept it as fact or fiction, but, famously abused his wife, Madonna, at the time when they were young and married. He was, charged with, possibly even trying to kill a paparazzi when they were making Shanghai Surprise, and is kind of known for having a hot temper and being very physical with his emotions. And so it's interesting that someone who has that reputation and that precedes him would say that, men in America are just become a bunch of sissies and acting like women. I'm curious because it doesn't really go into in depth of what he means by, in order to respect them, we don't have to become them. Because I'm curious as to what traits he's talking about or what examples he could cite. Certainly, if you look at pop culture right now, you see people like Lil Nas X, dressing in, maybe provocative clothing or clothing that has been traditionally assigned to female gender. Or Billy Porter wearing dresses and, again, wearing clothes that has been traditionally assigned to women. I don't know if he meant literally putting on a dress or if he's speaking in metaphor
So I'm just going to stop here. The Independent, where this originally appeared, the quote came from, they asked him to clarify those comments. Mm-hmm. And he said, I think that men have, in my view, become quite feminized. I have these very strong women in my life who do not take masculinity as a sign of oppression toward them. There are a lot of, I think, cowardly genes, like DNA genes, that lead to people surrendering their genes, like blue jeans, and putting on a skirt. So that's what's...
Like, can he be any more vague? Like what is his the women in his life? So if you were to ask his daughter, who he was doing this press tour with, what are the masculine traits that your dad has that are not threatening to you as a strong woman? Well, is it, that he's protective? That's not a man or female trait. Right. That's a trait of a parent that would be protective of their child. Is it a provider? Her mom is Robin Wright Penn, or, Robin Wright. So a successful actress in her own right. So she can, provide for her daughter as well. Mm-hmm. She's not dependent on Sean Penn. What other traditional roles or values are you saying are masculine? That's why I'm saying, like, please elaborate. What do you mean by masculinity? Is it the aggression that you famously like to express? Is it punching walls? Is it punching, hitting your wife with a baseball bat like he supposedly did to Madonna? I'm curious, like, let us know, like, if you're going to say something that's controversial like that and be so disappointed in American men, then show us what are the examples. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I looked on Twitter, and there's a lot of, you know, young guys that are supporting him and saying like, oh, he hit the nail on the head. He's right. Like, masculinity or malehood is under attack. And I'm always curious of how they mean by that, because they never truly cite examples. So who, you know, the president is a man. So one of the most powerful positions in the world is a man. Women
Mm-hmm.
still get paid, you know, more often than not, more than their female counterparts. So they're still making more money. You could argue that in traditional households, men still hold like the sort of position of power that there. It's a, you know, we live in a patriarchal society, so you know, women do allow men to kind of be the dominant one in the household somewhat sometimes, especially in a, you know, you could say that in a negative way. In religion, men still
Mm-hmm.
hold power. The Pope, you know,
Mm-hmm.
pastors, you know, you don't see a lot of people or women in power. You know, I think the whole transgender issue is a hot topic right now, but you don't really see any trans people replacing anyone in positions
Right.
of power, unfortunately. You know, so where are all these examples of like men having to step down or becoming women? Like, they still have all the power. Straight white men still have all the power.
Oh
So
yeah,
what the
definitely.
fuck are you talking about? Like, give us examples. And the other thing that I find kind of funny is that like, oh, here's this tough guy, Sean Penn, the actor. Really, like your life of acting, of pretending to be other people on film, you're the you know, example of masculinity. Like, should
Mm-hmm.
we hold you up as an example when you were playing pretend as a, you know, surfer in Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Like, is that masculine? You know, playing pretend? Because some could certainly argue that that's not a masculine role, that, you know, maybe you should do something more physical, like being a lumberjack or a fucking fireman or something. But yet you've built your whole career on playing pretend. So what are you talking about, Sean?
I think the whole subject should be, what are you talking about, Sean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What
It's.
the hell are you talking about, Sean Penn?
I mean, I was trying to come up with some way, like you said, people on Twitter were defending him, and
Yeah.
I was trying to think of how could I spin this to a defensible topic, and it's. I guess it came down to this: is Sean, who the fuck's asked you about it anyways? What does it matter what people are wearing? How does it affect you in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form? Let people be who they want to be. It doesn't matter what gender roles you feel are needed to be separated. Who
Yeah.
cares? Let people live their lives and let them enjoy it how they want to. And that's just what I
Yeah.
couldn't escape that thought. It was just like, you know what does it matter to you if the world is that bring you down because you see a man wearing a skirt or a
Yeah.
dress or something? Then you know what? Go to the mountains. Go, like Gabe said, go put on a flannel shirt, go chop down a tree and stay up there.
Well, and let's take a look at what he's promoting right now. He's promoting a movie that he directed. So
Mm-hmm.
he is in the position of power, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as a straight white man. And he also
Mm-hmm.
hired his daughter to be in the movie.
And son.
So yeah, so he is
Mm-hmm.
also expressing, you know, or taking advantage of his power within the industry to hire his
Mm-hmm.
daughter. So where's the oppression? Did he have to hire a trans man, you know, or woman to take the role of his
Right.
daughter?
Exactly.
Was he forced to place a female director in his, like, where are these examples? I mean, if you want to say, like, you know, one of the pop culture references that I mentioned earlier is Little Nas X. Little Nas X is so just the smallest representation of a queer artist within the hip hop
Mm-hmm.
community. You can't even say that it's being overtaken, or, you
Right.
know, rappers these days. Like, that's a very popular sentiment on Twitter, is like, oh, rappers these days are wearing dresses and wearing makeup. One rapper is doing that. Like, where are all the other examples? Like, and you know, and oh, well, Tupac, it would roll over in his grave if, you know, if he saw that that's how hip hop is. And it's like, oh, you know, the Tupac that was accused of, you know, doing egregious acts, you know, being misogynistic and sexist and homophobic, and that's the role model of masculinity. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, like, really, we have great examples of what it means to be a man. And it's not Sean Penn, it's not, you know,
Right.
people that are aggressive and violent and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, chauvinistic, and are still, you know, masculine, if you want to call it that. But if you have a role model that literally wears a skirt, you don't give a fuck what they're wearing because they're providing to you love, they're providing security to you, acceptance, whatever. It's such a weird. The only thing that I have hope for this whole hot topic of the situation is the article does mention that while he was like pontificating on masculinity and gender roles, his daughter was like sort of just like out of focus and just like kind of staring into the sky like, here goes my dad again. And so I'm glad that maybe she thinks he's full of shit and that attitude dies with him.
Right.
I obviously am in support of Tandy Newton calling him out. I think she is getting a bit of grief. People are tweeting back at her saying that he is in the right, but I fully support her statement that he is a gibbering fool. And I love she says in her tweet to him, "Motherfucker used to be sexy, but now you're just tragic." And that's perfect. I think that should be the end of that topic. Is just
that should be the end of that right there.
Yep. That she hit the nail on the head right there.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, another let's segue into a more heated topic.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. So let's keep it going.
Let's keep it going. Whoopi Goldberg on The View. Heard about that?
Yeah. So that's another one that people are up in arms, whether it be valid or, hyperbole or true or not, or if it's the media spinning this. But, I think you have the article pulled up if you want to share with our audience. But basically on The View, which of Whoopi Goldberg is the leading host, they were talking about Mouse, which is a comic graphic novel that depicts the Holocaust, that has the themes of the Holocaust and basically portrays what happened. And so they were talking about the topic of it being pulled from schools and from libraries because people saying that it's inappropriate for young people, which is a topic, a hot topic all in its own. But in response to that, she started rambling, as they do on The View. And I think you might have it queued up of what she says if you want to share.
Well, what I have here, what it says in the AP article is that she, while talking about this after the discussion about the Tennessee School Board banning Mouse, she said that it wasn't about race. It's about man's inhumanity to other man. Now, when I first heard of the controversy, I thought, oh, wow, what happened here? How is she being anti-Semitic? And then I read this article today. This is the first time I saw this because I looked a little bit deeper when you mentioned it. And that statement to me, I can see how Jewish scholars and whatnot could be upset about that, especially because, the Holocaust is really a hot topic right now, especially with all the different banning of the books and even with like the different Nazi protesters that are out in like Orlando or in Canada. And that just make me want to throw up when I see the video of that.
Yeah.
It's so I can see how they can be a little on edge, especially when coming from someone in a position like her. But that topic and that sentence, if you just step back and look at it, it really isn't that, I think, controversial. Mm-hmm. I mean, it all depends upon how you define Jewish people. Are they a race, which you have your thoughts on, I'll let you get to right now, or is it a religion? Nazism defined it, they didn't care. If you were Jewish, whether you're people secular or religious, you were Jewish and we're going to kill you.
Right.
So it's a little, she did go on and apologize. She issued a further clear statement, I guess. It says, "My words upset so many people, which was never my intention," she said. She said, "I understand why now, and for that I'm deeply, deeply grateful because the information I got was really helpful and helped me understand some different things." So she took it as a learning moment and took it as a way to educate herself about, I guess, the sensitivity around that topic right now. So I'm glad that she did that and she was able to issue that statement, unlike other people who would never admit any sort of error or would never admit they learned or that they can, better themselves. So that's good to see.
Yeah, I mean, for me as Hispanic person, Latinx person, Latino, whatever you want to call me, just as I mentioned the like three different names that you can use for my ethnic group, I never thought that my understanding of race is that Jewish people belong to an ethnic group. They are
Mm-hmm.
under the umbrella of Caucasian,
Mm-hmm.
just as
Mm-hmm.
Hispanics are actually,
Right. Mm-hmm.
in under racial designation. But within their individual ethnic groups, you have Jewish people, you have Hispanics, Italians, Portuguese, etc. But they're all Caucasian, they're all white. We know that racist people or people that are prejudiced don't care about the race, that it's the ethnic group, that
Right.
small little differences that make us supposedly, vastly different. I don't agree with that. What's the difference between a Portuguese person and a Mexican person from Arizona? I don't see it. I don't know what the big deal is, but racist people see it, right?
Yeah.
So that's taking out that definition of her saying, it wasn't racism, it was humanity being horrible against another, humans against humans. Is that incorrect? No, like the Holocaust was a crime against humanity
Yeah.
that was committed by human beings that
Mm-hmm.
exemplify us at our worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they will go down as an example of humans at their worst
Yeah.
behavior, their most
Mm-hmm.
evil. Most people don't argue that. Of course, there are racist people that are ignorant and just assholes that will argue that point. But Whoopi Goldberg wasn't arguing that point. I don't see that her statement or her intent was to diminish what they went through.
Right.
And I think that people are now holding her accountable to, her maybe misuse of wording. I would even argue that maybe she, according to definition, was not incorrect, but maybe, like she said, she was insensitive towards other people's feelings, and she apologizes for that. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's sort of like a dead issue at this point. Like, I mean, like you, I saw the headlines and Whoopi Goldberg's an anti-Semitic, and I thought, oh God, like how is that possible?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, one, I want to even say that she's a practicing Jew, so
That's a good
there's
question.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So racially, she's black, but religiously, she might be Jewish. We can look at that, or maybe check on that later. But I want to say that she is, and she did not have an intent to undermine, minimize the experience of people who experienced the Holocaust, the families who survived, the people who have, whole family lines that were killed. Obviously that wasn't her intent. So I am curious, in this day and age with media and Twitter, and how that one sentence just blew up. And I think that what's unfortunate about what happens is that we're part of that because, just like Sean Penn, I was heated and I wanted to share my opinion. People wanting to share their opinion then becomes like the news story itself. Then it's like, okay, well, what does the, Brooklyn Jewish, people of Upper West Side, like it just like everyone has their own little group that they belong to and wants to share their opinion and be the expert on the Jewish experience. But I mean, you as a Jewish person may not share the same opinion as the group that you share you spoke of what their opinion was on the matter. So it's like sometimes I wonder why those groups make blanket statements like that, because they obviously can't speak for the whole group of people. Some people will find offensive, some people won't. And like you said, there are people that are actually like Nazis protesting, and I haven't seen that in the media. But I have seen this Whoopi Goldberg thing. So are you picking the wrong battle? Are you calling Whoopi Goldberg out, who is in all intents and purposes probably an ally, and you're focusing the media, you're directing the limelight to her and trying to make an example out of her, and the true bad people are not getting any attention at all.
Right.
And so it's like, pick your battle. Like, who are you really wanting to destroy here? Like, Whoopi Goldberg is not the real problem.
No.
And
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I would hope that it is a political commentary. So, pop culture show, The View. Like maybe if you were a leader within the Jewish community, say, here's what I think was incorrect about your statement. I would love to come on the show, not call you an anti-Semite, and discuss this topic with you and say why it was racism that Jews were killed in the Holocaust. This is why we believe it is. But on the flip side, I also, as an educated person, understand where you were coming from by saying, maybe your understanding of race is that Jewish people aren't considered to have their own race, that they fall under. So I understand what you were trying to say. I know that you weren't trying to diminish what happened in the Holocaust, and you're not an evil person, but let's have that conversation before, people start literally giving her death threats, which I find insane, that you're mad that potentially someone, even if, let's say it's true, if she did diminish what happened to Jewish people during the Holocaust, you're upset about that. Like, people were killed, people were decimated. It was horrible. The payback or the response for you diminishing it is I kill you? How does that make sense?
I got you. No, I get you. Yeah.
Insane.
I completely agree. Yeah. And I like your idea of a leader within the Jewish community or a scholar being invited onto the show and to have that conversation. Because it would be helpful, not just for Whoopi Goldberg, I don't think she needs that further education. I think she knows, but for people out there who are, I guess, trigger happy to react, right? And call for death threats and based upon a headline, or who aren't willing to take the next step and look into it a little bit further. Yeah. And they just see something that just, boom, that's it. I'm getting her on the phone and you're dead. And it's just.
Yeah. And I think that when there's controversies like this, that there's always opportunists out there, right? That want to take this opportunity to either knock Whoopi Goldberg down, gain notoriety, get the microphone on me, get a quote. And one of those people being the Princess of Arizona, Meghan McCain, who I cannot stand, stating that she's heartbroken about what Whoopi said, and and now taking an opportunity to run to the media to share her brilliant perspective on what Whoopi Goldberg said. And she knows Whoopi Goldberg. She knows she's not anti-Semitic. Meghan McCain is not Jewish. Let Jewish people speak for themselves. Don't let the little blonde, blue-eyed princess talk for an ethnic group because they didn't appoint her for that. Go ahead and be a bobble, speaking head on Fox, whatever you want to do, but don't use this as an opportunity to attack your ex-coworker, former friend, if you want to call it that, to get more attention. And that's what she's doing, right? She uses her dad's notoriety for her career. So why wouldn't she do that? It seems like a natural progression, but it kind of, I get people wanting to share their opinion. Obviously I do it. We're doing it now, but I don't know. It just certain parts of it just seem very cringy when you see someone like Meghan McCain that really has no stakes in the game. She's not Jewish. Exactly. She's not on The View. She is a former employee of The View. Like, go talk about guns or whatever it is that you like to do, or do whatever. But leave Whoopi Goldberg alone.
About guns.
I love Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, she's one of those people like Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, who are comedic geniuses that our generation has grown up watching their movies. They're brilliant. They're great actors and actresses, and show them a little grace for maybe misspeaking in the tiniest little way. I mean, I really think that this wasn't that big of a gaffe as everyone is making it out to be. But again, I'm not Jewish. I can't speak for Jewish people. So I can't, play down their emotions or, the sensitivity towards this topic. However, I can share my opinion based off of, my own life experience. And that's what it is. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, being I can't say I'm half Jewish. Being Jewish from my mother's side, but
I thought
growing
you
up
were going to
really
say from like the waist up, or like it just sounded like you were doing a physical, like me being Jewish from
the
like
waist
the
up.
neck up.
However, not growing up in a Jewish secular household because we really didn't do anything. I still, consider myself to be Jewish, but I guess I'm not as sensitive to remarks like this because I wasn't. Yes, I don't think I had any family that were directly affected by the Holocaust, but because I think all of them were already over here in the United States by then. But I just think that it doesn't hurt me to hear stuff like this. Not really, but I guess it should, because I guess it depends if I'm looking at what she's saying is to minimize Jewish people, and I don't think it was.
Right.
So that's why a remark like this is she was not saying, "Oh yeah, you guys are less than regular people and you're not a race." But like I said, I always thought Jewish people were broken into secular Jewish, so it's like a race, a set of people, or religious Jewish people, and you can be religious and Jewish or secular and Jewish, and it was like one of the only few people and religions where those two collided, and you could be one or the other and still be Jewish. So it's like you don't see like Mexicans and Catholic, and which one are you, And I'm a half Mexican and half Catholic too because my dad's Mexican, grew up Catholic, so.
From the waist
I can
down.
say that. So I can say that stuff. But it's like I don't know where I was going with that, but I just think that
I blame myself.
I guess at the end of the day is individually do you get someone in my shoes or someone similar to me, look at her remarks and say, "Oh yeah, man, she needs to be fired or she needs to be canned or whatnot." Yeah. Or do you get people like me as well who see her remarks and say, "Okay, yeah, I get what she was saying, whatever. It's not that big of a deal."
Yeah.
It's the other people I think who are on the outside, like you said, Meghan McCain, the other people who are calling for her head, calling for her to be fired, who might not have any claim to that position, to want to respond for those who are directly affected by her remarks. So the non-Jewish people say, "Yeah, she's done. She needs to be out of there." Or it could just be those people who are looking for the limelight and looking to knock her down a peg or two.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, you have someone like Donald Trump who aggressively, I think, tried to appeal to the Jewish demographic by, saying that Democrats didn't have their best interest of Israel, but at the same time, spoke out the side of his face saying, the people that were protesting that were neo-Nazi Proud Boys, some of them are good people. Exactly. And so it's odd that it's like, that this story is going to be run on Fox News, like on a time, on a loop of Whoopi Goldberg's anti-Semitic, Democrats, liberals are anti-Semitic, but they're the same people that think that Proud Boys are, good people. So it's like, it's just a very like a good opportunity to try to knock her down, to try to get a Democrat or get a liberal. I don't even know how Whoopi identifies, if she's libertarian or Democrat or what. But it's an opportunity for them to like knock her and have like a gotcha moment. And it's so stupid because it's really not that big, that big of a deal. Again, I mean, I'm not Jewish, but
taking from what you just said and Donald Trump's comments about there's good guys or people on both sides of that, I take more offense to that than I do to Whoopi Goldberg's comment, because that's saying that some of those Nazis are good people, and the only good Nazi is one that's punched in the face. So
I'll go one step further because I like to court controversy, but honestly, an only good Nazi is a dead Nazi.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say that. But do I go there? No, I'll just go with the punch in the face.
I'll go there for you.
Okay,
I'll go there for you.
A good ally there.
Yeah. And so it just, and to address like any sort of maybe hypocrisy of me being upset about these people talking about Whoopi Goldberg and me like ranting about Sean Penn is, I think that he did have, somewhat of an ill intent, because right now there is a lot of, anti-trans sentiment, and it falls within that dialogue, that narrative of, feminism, or the feminization of men being bad. And that attitude does have a direct correlation to trans women being attacked and killed, and that is something that is very rampant in society right now, and we do have to protect that segment of our community. And by not attacking or at least discussing someone who says a controversial statement like that, like, oh, America just sucks because men are becoming women and they're putting on our skirts, like, that's the kind of attitude that other men that are ignorant hear. And then when they see a quote man wearing a dress and they attack him or kill him because it threatens their idea of manhood, it has very dangerous implications, today. And so that's, I think, the difference is, like, we know Sean Penn, like there's more of an issue with him saying that, like there's ramifications to what he's saying. I don't think that there was ill intent from Whoopi Goldberg. I don't think it has any ramifications because she wasn't degrading. She wasn't, doing anything that would injure Jewish people in any way, I think. So if anyone wants to call me a hypocrite, there you go. That's my comeback to that.
So. You're not a hypocrite.
But speaking of Mouse, the comic book, you obviously know, and you are now becoming a comic book geek, now. Have you read Mouse?
I have not, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, until I started researching about a topic we're going to talk about, I didn't even really know about it. Mm-hmm. So when I heard it was getting banned, I was like, what is? I don't even know what this is. And I know it's a very widely popular, one of the most popular, widespread graphic novels that's out there, yet I had no idea of its existence. I'm going to read it because, it looks interesting and looks like a great way to kind of, when I was reading about what it was a great way to tell his parents' story about World War II in the concentration death camps, and in a format that can be relatable to all, using animals and whatnot. So it looks very, very intriguing to me.
And the so-called controversy being that some people think that conversation or that story is too heavy for children. I try to recollect of when I was a kid and being introduced to heavy topics, and not being damaged by it, not being triggered or injured in any way. I think that, we minimize kids or children's ability to their critical thinking skills. And I think that them reading this would actually help people become more compassionate and more understanding. And I think it's a great format for kids to have an introduction into what happened during the Holocaust. We have kids read the Diary of Anne Frank. We talk about the Holocaust. Why not allow them to read this? I think that it's interesting that we have parents or educators that try to police what kids can or cannot read. And I think that it should be a parent's decision. Hopefully parents have their best interests of their kids and know their kids well enough to know what they can and cannot handle. Obviously I don't want a kid to read it at 7 and then be crying themselves to sleep for months because, this evil exists in the world. But do I want people to still live in this privileged, entitled bubble where they don't know anything outside of, the gates of their neighborhood until they go to college and then they've already formed an opinion about the world? No, like that needs to stop. They need to be introduced to other things. So I support it.
I think it's what you said about the parents not wanting their kids to read it because they don't want them to be traumatized by it. I think it's parents don't want to take the time to have that conversation with the kids, what it's about, because they want to leave that all up to the teachers in school and let them talk about it. But if if you want well-rounded kids and you want to have those moments of where you can help them learn about the history, because if we don't learn history, we're doomed to repeat it, which, as you can see, we kind of are, unfortunately, in this country. And it's one of those things where if the kids read it, sit down and talk to them about it, answer any questions, show them why it's necessary for them to learn about that.
Yeah.
Other than just, what video game is out and how you can play your video games and whatnot. So I think it's a meaningful topic that parents just, I don't want to say they're too lazy over there where they're trying to ban it, but maybe they just don't want to spend the time that they need to.
Yeah, they're lazy. And I think that there's an amount of privilege that comes along with that of, middle or upper middle class white families not wanting their children to be, shown the evils of the world, and what a privileged life that must be to not have to, you don't face racism, you don't you don't see anti-Semitism, and nor do we want you to know that it exists. We don't want you to have critical race theory taught to you. We don't want you to hear about sexism or misogyny in this. It's like they want to continue that, white fantasy of America where, everything's perfect. You have a mom and a dad who are heterosexual and we have 2.5 kids and a dog, and don't ruin their lives by showing them the reality. Well, they live in the world and, other kids don't have the benefit or the privilege of not learning those things at an early age. I'm sure there are kids that are Jewish that, that are physically recognizably Jewish that, due to their choice of garments and headwear and stuff like that walk through New York that get beaten up, that get, accosted and they don't have the choice of learning or reading about things. So, and they can handle it. They learn to overcome that discrimination and to be stronger. Well, the other kids need to as well. The other kids need to learn about the struggles that other people face and become allies, because that's how you become an ally. You learn about the struggles that other people face and you help fight it. It's not enough to just know that it exists, but you have to go out and help fight it. And that's where the laziness and not only the laziness, but the really deep down, rooted feelings of not wanting it to change, wanting things to stay the same, or even things to go back the way they were or make America great again. Is like, it didn't bother us when we were in the 50s and, Jewish people had to live in their ghettos and Black people had to live in their ghettos and Japanese were in internment camps and Mexicans could, get deported with just a second's notice. Everything was fine for middle class, upper middle class white people. We loved it. Let's make it back that. Well, and I think that's really what's at the heart of people that are anti-critical race theory, anti letting kids read about things that happen in the world, is they want it to be just that nice, pretty little fantasy realm that they have. And
Stepford
it can't.
Wives,
Yeah,
right?
and it can't. It's not. That's what creates all this turmoil in the world. So I don't know, but that's why I love comics. You can have a graphic novel such as Mouse that is such a great teachable tool. It has a story, a plot that not only you find, entertainment in the sense that, you go on that journey of the characters and all of that, but you learn about things outside of your own realm and reality. And that's what I find great about comics and what's magical about them is that, on the one hand, you could have something like Mouse, but on the other hand, you could have something like Spider-Man. You can have something like the Avengers that is purely fun fantasy, and is just for entertainment value. And so comics are great as a as a medium, as a piece of art, really.
Piece of art. I'm glad you said that, because I was doing some research for this topic that we're talking about right now. Are comic books art?
Yeah.
And I guess it all boils down to, in its basest, purest form, is it's in the eyes of the beholder, right? So no matter what you look at it, what I might see as art, someone else might not. Someone who sees a piece of dog poop in the center of a floor might see that as art, but I don't. It's just something that needs to be picked up. Or like a white wall with maybe a blue dot in the center, or a painting or a picture of 2 shades of green.
Yeah.
Or a fine Rembrandt or something like that. So the levels of art run the full gamut, and I was just looking at what is the definition of art, right? It's the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. That sounds like a comic book to me.
Right.
I mean, especially if you look at some of the artwork that's being done today in comic books, it's just outstanding.
Yeah, and I actually have a good example of just that, of a book that I read when I was a kid that I wasn't traumatized by, but very much was a learning moment for me. It was an X-Men graphic novel, no surprise, because I'm like the biggest X-Men fan. But God Loves, Man Kills. And it's about the hatred that mutants are facing, which is obviously a metaphor for race, anti-Semitism, homosexuality. You could replace it with pretty much any sort of discrimination. And you have in the comic, Magneto is fighting, sort of like the Malcolm X man in that universe of trying to protect his mutant people, and then you have mainstream people that are trying to kill them because of the differences that they perceive they have, and at one point. You have this leader within that movement, that anti-mutant movement, whose daughter is found out to be a mutant, and he disowns her. And again, that very much, what happens to people that come out of the closet that are gay, or that bring interracial relationship home. I mean, it's an obvious metaphor. And when that happened, I remember crying and being like, how could a dad do that to his daughter because she is a mutant or she's different? And it was such a powerful book. I definitely recommend it to like anyone that would like to be introduced into comics or see the real value. The artwork was spectacular. The writing, it was written by Chris Claremont, who is like the writer of the X-Men, one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. And it just exemplifies how great or how elevated the artwork can be, or the art form can be. Like you said, it can move you to tears. It can, teach you lessons. But then also, I'm just a big fan of picking up a comic book because it has a cool cover drawn by an artist, and you're like, wow, Storm looks fucking badass in this cover because she looks powerful and she's black and she's, controls weather. And just on that alone, it's, to me, it's just as meaningful as going in and, like you're saying, looking at a Rembrandt or, Monet or whatever. And it, one could even say maybe it's even more powerful because of the reach that it has, because it's so ingrained in pop culture.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough about the power of comics. Like I think that the reason I was able to excel in English and reading is because I started reading at such a young age, because every day my parents bought me a comic before I went to my grandma's house to get babysat. I mean, this is before I was even in kindergarten, and, up until today, like I still buy comic books. So it's I definitely owe a lot to comic books, my education, my ability to read, and my perspective on life. A lot of that is derived from comic books.
Yeah. And I think just to go along with what you're saying about the written portion of it. So I reached out to a Professor Latinx who we've had on, Frederick Louis Adama, who we've had on the show before, about this topic, about conversation is are comic books literature? And the reason I asked him that was I asked my mom, we were having this conversation, do you think comic books are art? And she said, yes, of course they are. But they're not literature. This is coming from she's a former elementary school librarian. So she's saying that they weren't literature. And I was kind of taken aback by that. I was like, how can they not be literature? You look at graphic novels, you look at the stories that they tell and everything. And she said, well, and it stemmed mainly from, I guess, the teachers and that people who believe that, not wanting kids to just be stuck on comic books or whatnot to read. They wanted them to get into more quote unquote novels where the written word is their form of art, which I get. But when I approached Professor Latinx about this, he referred me to a website, which is the Visual Language Lab, which is run by a guy, another professor named Neil Cohen. So I emailed him and I asked him if he thought comic books were literature. And he gave me a nice, complex response, which I'll kind of paraphrase. But he said that for him, thinking in terms of it becomes less distinct if you accept his notion of visual language, which argues that graphics have similar structure and cognition as speech and writing. So in this understanding that art and literature are the same, basically, that art is use of an expressive system. So you could equally speak of the artistic use of words to be literature or the poetic use of graphics to be art. So ultimately, art and literature refer to the same thing in general. So I thought that was really cool. And we're just coming from an expert in visual language. So I really appreciate his time in getting back to me on that. So, but at the end, he does say that it is, art, literature are subjective, really, and they really are. So you think, is a magazine literature, if you just can look at written word? No, because, you're placing them in two different buckets, I guess. But so the same thing with comic books, it comes down to, or graphic novels comes down to the eye of the beholder, like we said at the beginning. So it's cool to have it defined, but it's also cool to know that I can say, you know what? I don't care what you think. I think it's literature and it's going to be for me.
Yeah.
So it, and I think it comes down to what you said, the power of comic books. And I think they are very powerful, and not just comic books as we know them in like superheroes, like you said, with Mouse, and there's other, like when they went underground comic books, and the topics of the day and how they were rebellious against, like the war movements or stuff like that. And it's just, they're a powerful medium that today reaches more people than a fine work of art. So it's like the tier level of art, you have your Da Vinci's, your Van Goghs, who, yes, some of their reprints are pop culture now, but their fine prints can only be viewed by people who are lucky enough to get to the Louvre or that, or the fancy museums, whereas comic books as a art can be digitalized and are seen everywhere. And they have that same impact, whether you're reading it in your hand or on your iPad or something, I think.
I've been fortunate enough to go to that museum in Paris and see the Mona Lisa. And obviously it's one of the most iconic pieces of fine art that's ever existed. And it was, a great moment to be able to like physically see it face to face. But in reality, my life has been more impacted by the work produced by Marvel and DC and Image than the Mona Lisa. So you could say that in the long run, comic books are the most impressionable, and at least on my life, obviously I'm very much inspired by fine art as well, but art is art. I don't think that it should be categorized by fine, underground or folk or whatever, you go on lowbrow. It's however you want to express yourself. And I'm a fan of it all. Like, I'm a fan of all art. So it's really great. But we were fortunate enough, or I should say you were fortunate enough to speak to an artist within the field that we're speaking of within comic books. And why don't we get a little introduction into that conversation you had? That'd be great.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for bringing that up. And we'll play the conversation right after this, so stay tuned for that. But I was able to talk to an artist by the name of Joshua Swaby. He goes by Sway. He's a younger artist. He's just graduated from SVA in New York City. It's the School of Visual Arts. And his work, he has like 6, I think, variant covers coming up for Marvel for Black History Month.
Oh, wow.
And it's really cool. His artwork is fantastic, and we'll have links in our description box for it. But we had a nice conversation about, his style, his journey so far, what he's excited about for the future. So yeah, let's have a listen to that.
Today we are joined by Joshua Swaby, who we'll refer to as Sway. He is a fantastic freelance comic and illustration cover artist who's done work for Marvel Studios, DC Comics, and Entertainment Weekly. So thank you, Sway, for taking some time to join us today here on PopCultX. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here. Thank you so much.
So tell me just a little brief introduction to who you are and to our listeners so they can learn a little bit more about you, Sway. Give us your little brief bio, I guess.
Well, I'm Sway, as you know me as. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Grew up, born here. And really, I've just been doing art since throughout my life, really. From elementary to like college, I've been, art was such a goal and a pursuit to do as a career-wise. So it was something for me that I've always wanted to do and always wanted to bring out into the world and stuff. I started in high school. I went to art and design.
Oh, nice.
Which was basically, was also an art school. It had all different stuff from art, photography, graphic design, animation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And from there, I really had like really great teachers and stuff. And after that, after I graduated from there, I went to SVA, School of Visual Arts.
Oh, cool.
Which was it was a good school. My complaints about it. At first, I really wanted. It was a school that was so forward with because it had cartoon major and I wanted to do comics, which I'm still doing. But the 4-year experience, I really felt like it. I honestly should have just kind of, done the work on my own. Though I had, professors and stuff has helped me and who were in the industry, I still feel like I was able to do on my own and stuff. Because I was always someone who was always trying to navigate and always get my in, the industry and stuff. From high school, I had a mentor whose name is Terry Dotson. I don't know if you're not sure with him. He's also a really big comic artist.
Oh, nice.
He also, from high school, has mentored me, and then from there on, college and stuff. So, but yeah, from that on point, being in college, it didn't really need it, but
I hear you.
I was able to, use an advantage for certain things.
Yeah.
But from 2020, because that's where I graduated, from 2020 was a whole different sort of life-changing shift. From that point, COVID had started, the whole thing and stuff. And from there, also, it was going to be my last year in college.
Right.
I didn't know what the hell I was going to do at all. Between COVID happening and school, I was just I don't know what's going to happen because it's just everything, it was falling down and I didn't know was going on, and I just felt after I graduated, what was it I was going to do next?
Right.
But something happened in June with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd movement and stuff.
Right.
That was the biggest reason of why I'm like kind of like here in the industry today, because I showed my portfolio during the time being. There was a lot of editors and stuff who during that time was just like, we're given an open space for Black creators and Black artists. And for me at the time, I always felt like I was underrated too, because I was just like, I'm working like nonstop and I'm creating. I just feel like I'm not doing anything and nobody's not caring.
Yeah.
So at the point, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna share my portfolio. And from that, I've gotten a lot of attention. So much attention to the point where one writer, Rick Reminder, offered me like my first ever cover art gig.
Nice.
And then it was Marvel who, reached out to me.
That's cool.
Who basically was like, hey, we're interested in you. We would like to have you as like a cover artist and stuff. So from there, that happened. Sometimes I still think of it like a blessing and a curse, because the situation that happened, I really wish it had never happened to me. But at the same time, just like, well, I'm in it now, so I'm kind of glad that I shared my portfolio. Basically from there on, people saw the talent that I had and went on with it. So from there on, Marvel, they saw me and they basically offered me to do a cover. And then after that, it went from Entertainment Weekly. It was and Entertainment Weekly was much further down. It didn't happen during the whole Black Lives Matter movement, but it came more later on as I've showed.
As your work got acknowledgement and stuff, right.
So Entertainment Weekly, they found me. So they supposedly somebody found me who from SVA. They saw that I graduated there and saw my work, and then it was DC Comics who found me. It was a writer, I can't remember his name, but I've posted a piece. It was a Lady Gaga and Bayonetta piece that I did, and a lot of people was really loved it. And writers saw it and was just like, have you done work for DC? And I was like, no. But he was like,
you're gonna.
I'm gonna put you to do DC stuff for DC Comics. I was just like, oh, really? And that's where I did DC Comics.
Nice.
And then from 2021, I did another work for Entertainment Weekly, and that's when Marvel Studios contacted me. Marvel Studios, I didn't have to show any portfolio or anything. They said that somebody just passed my name and interested me, and from there on they put me to do stuff for What If, and also their upcoming show that's been announced, X-Men 97.
Right on.
And from there on, it was from doing stuff for Imagine FX. That's more like the biggest like digital art comics for artists and stuff. And then I did stuff for Z2 Balmain. Z2 that's collaborating with Balmain, the fashion.
Right, the fashion house, yeah. So
I did work for them, and my work was on Paris Fashion Week. And
wow,
yeah. And then I did some work for
wow,
yeah, it's been a lot for me. It was a whole roller coaster. I was doing work and overwork and work, and right now I'm just still feel like oh my god, like I still can't believe I got so much so fast in like almost like 2 years now, and and I just graduated. So
right. Well, if you got the talent, people want to showcase that and they want to see more of it. So kudos to you for being able to take in all of that and still be yourself and still give back your style. Because some people, I'm sure they want to change you, or they want to we need it this way or that way, but you're able to commit to your own style. Because I've looked through your digital online portfolio and I see your work, and I can tell that you haven't lost that, because it still remains consistent to who you are. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Does being from Brooklyn, did that have any influence on your work and your style at all?
Yes, in a way. In a way, my work, I always feel like in a lot of ways, my work has so many influence, but I would say my main influence is so much that I've always been into was comics and was video games.
Okay.
Music in general was something that I was very influenced. The things that I see from like fashion and stuff. So much of it has influenced my work, and I always bring it to something to where it's my own style and it's my own sort of unique, sense of touch.
Yeah.
Also, I think even though you probably don't see in my work, but I used to dance, and dancing was something that I've always like sort of used in my work too, in sort of the obsession of like movement and lines and stuff. So in a lot of ways, that's also been really a big factor in my work too and stuff. So yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Just drawing from different aspects of yourself and relating them into your art. That's cool. Do you have, I guess, who was your biggest, you said you loved comics from a young age and you love video games. I love video games too. I just recently got into comics really heavily with like finding like the Marvel Unlimited app and the DC version of that. So finally I've just been plowing through different versions of comics. Who do you think has been your biggest influence, artistic influence from like the comic book or video game side that really relates to you?
So artist wise, it was Adam Hughes. Adam Hughes was someone that from high school, I remember I had an old Wizard magazine, and I remember just flipping through, and I remember seeing one little artwork from him, and at first I was just saying, this is a really good Wonder Woman piece. Let me look up this guy. And once I looked him up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that I want to do in my work. So Adam Hughes was someone that was a very big influence on my work. And I used to like copy and study his work in high school. And I'm still obsessed with this work still to this day. But his work was something that I really wanted to put an influence in my work and stuff. The way he draws women and the way that he colors and stuff. But yeah, Adam Hughes is one of like the biggest, and also my mentor Terry Dotson was also a biggest influence because I've, had his work since I was a kid.
Cool.
And yeah, video game wise, I would have to say Bayonetta. I don't know if you ever played Bayonetta.
I don't know if I've played that game or not. Maybe I have. Okay, I'll look it up. Just play it. You're gonna be like, "What the hell is happening?" At the same time, you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is such a good game!" Right.
And Bayonetta was one of those video games that really influenced like a lot of my work and a lot of the sense of confidence and sexuality and the sense of power in a way. So that video game has really influenced like the sort of work that I have and stuff. So yeah. That's
cool. Well, with video games, you said you did some work for Crystal Dynamics and you also did the animation for What If. Do you find there a big difference between drawing a cover art for a comic book and doing animation? Is that something that's easily you can go back and forth between, or is it like left and right brain?
What I did during Marvel Studios, they wanted me to do like crowds. Like it was basically a crowd of people, and what they wanted me to do was, because they had a specific style that they had for the show, that I had to sort of borrow that and use that in the work. And it was very hard because it was just like I had to sort of change my style in a way, and I had to, which they were using. So it was definitely hard to have my brain switch from doing stuff, doing covers and doing stuff that was for something for TV. So it was definitely a lot of work in it, a lot of learning experience to do, and also doing a little bit of character designs and stuff.
Right.
Because they want a specific style, and you really can't really, although you can showcase your work, it's more like it has to be this. It can't be, the other way around. So
right. And if people are watching and want to go see the What If episode, I think it's the Star-Lord What If episode, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
That was probably one of my favorite episodes too. So.
Yes, it's a very good episode. Very good.
So how do you think art, or how important do you think like art is today, even comic book art in society? Like, do you think how much of a role, I guess, well, okay, I'll back up a little bit. On PopCultX this episode, we're talking about should comic books and comics be considered art? And so I think it should be, of course, because it is. It really, really is. I mean, do you think, with that in mind, do you think that comic books and art should play a role, or how much of a role do they play right now in the society in general?
Very much. It's a very big role. If you look at how Marvel Studios uses stuff, so much goes back to the comics, and so much goes back to how much the artists and also the writers itself, create these worlds and create these characters for, the stories for it to be put in the big screen. So in a lot of ways, it's a very big deal. I always look at, comic art and illustration as a very high art, as to specifically people see fine art as very high art. But in terms of the stuff that I'm doing or the illustration is more like low tier art in a way.
Yeah.
But, it
isn't.
It's really the same. It's just different in technical skill. And I just feel like it's there should be the same, equal equality in terms of certain work.
No, I agree.
There's certain ways, you can't really, some people can't really do, comic illustrations, but they can do fine art or, or can do both. But it's just, to me, it's very equal to me.
Yeah. Now you've done a lot of covers, and I'll probably show some for our audience to see. Do you have are you interested in creating a whole comic book itself? So the internal pages and whatnot, is that something that's on your things to do list?
I've thought about it, but I've done a lot of interior work around my college years, and it really has sort of burnt me down.
Okay.
Yes, because when I was doing that, I've learned that I put so much time and sometimes details when I do interior work, to which it slows my pace, and it takes time to really figure out a panel. Sometimes I always think about doing a comic, but I think, to me right now, I feel like my work just stands alone, just doing stuff that are, covers or illustration, or anything in terms of marketing, or in the future wise, which I want to pursue, is doing stuff for character designs and, stuff for, movies or video games and stuff. So, yeah.
Right on. That's cool. No, you have a good grasp of the individual characters, especially in your covers. I can really see that a lot. I mean, this is today, of course, is February 1st for those watching, and it is the start of Black History Month for 2022. And I saw that we'll be having 6 variant covers for Marvel this month.
Yes.
That is awesome. I saw 4 of them, I think, which would be the Luke Cage, which for me, that one was just wow, that is so cool. I really like the Luke Cage version. That's just the colors that you brought out, the stature from the low angle. It's just making him, really stand out.
Great person that I've used as inspiration for that, and I was just like, I knew it. He's gonna be Luke Cage. I'm gonna use him to use for that cover. So yeah.
That's cool. Now, speaking of that, do you have people in your life or that you follow anywhere online or anything? You say, I'm going to model my characters off of that person.
Yes, I do. The Captain Marvel, the Monica,
The Rambo.
yes, the Miles Morales, the Luke Cage, were all modeled by people that I follow, that I've watched, that I know.
That's cool.
And I thought it was, better for me to like use people that I've, kind of know from or inspired by, and just, I basically just went and just, asked them permission, be like, hey, can I use your this character and stuff. But yeah, I really wanted those covers to be very unique and very different.
Yeah.
So different, Black characters and Black, features and stuff. So it was definitely, I use a lot of people from who I follow or know to
That's cool.
Bring these characters. Yeah.
That's really cool. When you're designing for DC or Marvel, do you notice that you have to make slight variations to your style because of the maybe the different I guess just the way DC and Marvel separate themselves?
No, I always feel like my work sort of stays the same with Marvel and DC.
Oh, okay, cool.
I never really never change it. I always, the stuff that I have for Marvel will always look like the stuff that I have to DC. It's just technically the way that I do it is just very differently from like other, cover work and stuff. But I never really change it in a way. The tones are different, I would say, but mostly I always stay the same with all the work. So
that's cool. That's cool. I mean, that's good. I'm glad that you're sticking true to yourself there. That's really cool and not bending too much. Now, since you started in high school with your artwork to today, do you think your style has changed at all, evolved, maybe just,
tremendously.
Okay.
Very much. Even from elementary too, because I was also in elementary school. I went to also a performing arts school in elementary also.
Right on.
And I had a sketchbook throughout my life, and I was always drawing. If anyone knew me, I always had a sketchbook in hand. It was basically my little diary, and
That's
it was
cool.
Something that I needed when I'm like either feeling sad and stuff. I was always drawing. I was always drawing in the train and stuff, but my work has tremendously, sort of changed. I was very determined. I've always, pushed myself to, be able to do things that I wasn't able to do, and to work my way around. Because I, from day one, I kind of always realized that I wanted to be something. So
right.
So I wanted to do art as something as a career wise, and I wanted to, be a professional at it. So yeah.
So what are your favorite? So since you now are a professional, and I will call you that because you are, what are your favorite and least favorite parts of being a professional artist?
For right now, it's been deadlines. It's been killing me. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh my gosh, I have to and usually sometimes I always, email the editors and be like, hey, I might need some time for certain things. But yeah, mostly it's deadlines.
I hear you. I hear you.
A pro, I don't know what to a pro being a professional. I don't know.
Well, I guess you get to do what you love for a living, right?
True. That's true. That's very. I still feel like even though me hearing myself, people say I'm a professional artist, I'm like, oh wow, yeah. Sometimes But sometimes just like, I'm really professional because I still feel so new, and sometimes I'm just like, wow. So it's just, I feel like I'm still young in my age, so it's just feel like I'm still learning a lot.
I hear you.
As much as these covers that you see, and everybody's just like, my God, you never miss. These are just like professional. Like I'm just like some of these, I'm just like, well, I'm learning. Each of these cover, I'm learning and finding something to be able to get better at. So
yeah, I hear you. Well, that's the mark of a true artist, right? Someone who doesn't really like their work and sees ways to improve it and always working to improve it. So now you have both sides. That's really cool. So if you're not illustrating or when you're not creating, what else do you enjoy doing?
Nowadays, well, before it, but I still do. Now I go back to the gym and I mostly just like work out. Sometimes I just just go outside and just go to the city.
Yeah.
And just sometimes walk and enjoy the restaurants and stuff. But mainly I'm mostly a home person, so I'm always watching something on Netflix or playing a video game and stuff. So to really just get my mind cleared and just be like, okay, I'll go back to that. But mostly, yeah, I'm mostly a home person, but I do try to like go outside and stuff. So and also work out and everything. Yeah.
What's the most recent series or TV series that you've binge watched that you've just escaped into?
I just finished watching All of Us Are Dead.
I just started that last night. Nice.
It's so good. It is.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't seen a good like zombie flick or a zombie show for a while. Ever since I saw Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, I had a bad taste in my mouth of just like, wow, this is so terrible. So when I saw this was coming out, I was just like, okay, this is going to be good. And let me tell you this, Korean shows or Korean movies, they don't miss. They always know how to write. And they always have Netflix electricity on every time. They really put their foot into their work.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
All of Us Are Dead was a really good show, and I've enjoyed every single moment of it. I've also been watching Euphoria.
Okay.
And I've also started watching a little bit of Skins, the UK version. But yeah, that's just really it.
That's cool. I mean, I've watched one episode of Euphoria just because my co-host really likes it, and it's crazy. That show is crazy.
Let me tell you, that's not how my high school was.
Me either. I was like, wow, I didn't get invited to those parties.
I don't know how. Watching it's very funny because when I watch, I'm just like, I still have my problems with it, but at the same time, it's a good show in a way of how certain things are talked about and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely watching it makes me really not do drugs at all. I'm like, nope. I'm not. But it's also, it's something that is quite needed in today's, generation. But I do feel like, it can be exaggerated a little bit too much. So.
Yeah, I hear you. That's cool. Do you think, last question I have for you. So how do you think your art has played a role in other areas of your life?
Yes. Oh, all the time. Whenever I walk, whenever I watch something, whenever I see something, whenever I'm with a group of people, it's funny because especially since me, I'm a person who always like, seeing like emotions in people and everything and stuff. I always focus on people just to see how their emotions are and everything. And I would always be like,
Right.
I can use that for my work, or the way certain people handle themselves or pose or in the train and stuff. I'm always just looking, and I would just be like, I can use that for one of my works and stuff.
Right.
So
right.
It's always everywhere, especially when I'm in the city. Sometimes I just take pictures, if I see something over in terms of like a little scene from like further into the city or like the skyline, I would like take pictures and be like, I can use. Hopefully, I can use this for a reference for another cover. I remember one time I was walking with my mom. I saw like a really damaged like car, like it was rusted and just like done up.
Right.
And I had to tell my mom, I was like, Mom, stop here. Pictures. You never know.
Exactly.
It was damaged, so bad. But I was just like, I would love to use it for something in terms of just me, if I had like, a certain scene that I'm drawing that I needed like a damaged car and like I have to draw it and render it and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. So when you draw the next zombie cover that you're going to do, you're going to put that car in there.
And I'm hoping I get like a horror like cover, which something I would love to do.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm very picky with horror, but I am always intrigued by it. So for me, zombies and psychological horror is something that I've always been like interested in, and I always wanted to like do more. Hopefully, do more in like covers and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Well, is there any character? Let's manifest this out there right now. Is there any character that you're like a dream character you want to create a cover for? Is there any particular character you say, you know what, that's who I want to create one for? Or is there maybe a new one that you want to create?
At the moment, it's Catwoman.
Catwoman, right on. Okay.
As a kid, I used to draw Catwoman a lot, and I was a very big fan of Catwoman. I used to have her comics and everything, and so Catwoman would be like probably like one of those covers where I'm just like, wow, as a kid I used to like draw her all the time, and now I could finally be able to draw her. Publishing, company. So
that would be awesome.
I hope I get to do a Catwoman cover. So yeah.
So if you're listening, because all the major studios listen to us here, make sure you contact Sway to get him to do your next Catwoman cover. Is Catwoman going to be in the new Batman movie? I think so.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
So there you go. We need to get Sway here to create a variant poster for the movie for Catwoman.
That would be actually lovely too.
Well, Sway, if people wanted to see more of your artwork, is there a website or anywhere where they can go look, or can they just find you on Twitter? Is that the best way?
Twitter is jswayart, and on Instagram it's sway_art.
Okay.
And my art station is, well, you basically say Joshua Swaby and you can find it from there. But yeah.
Okay. I will put your links in the description box below. So we'll have that there. So thank you very much, Sway, for taking some time today to talk to us. And it was great getting to know you a little bit, getting to learn about where your art's come from. And I think you have a very bright future coming up for you. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you can create. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
So yeah, once again, we here at PopCultX really thank Sway for taking some time to talk to us about his art style, his style, and he's a really cool guy, and it was really fun talking to him.
Yeah, and it didn't occur to me until right now, but what a great way for us to start off Black History Month, then to spotlight a young Black artist that is finding success within an industry that is very hard to break into, and history is living, and we're seeing someone that is breaking boundaries and opening up the doors for other people. Like I said, the industry is very hard to get into too. So it's a great conversation that you have with him, and I'm glad that PopCultX is able to put a spotlight on him, and we're able to share some of the work. I'll be looking out for those variants, of course, at my local comic books shop, and so I'll be probably buying many of those variants as well. So
they looked really cool. I mean, he shared some of the covers on his Twitter feed, and I shared a couple inside that episode, so it's really cool.
I had a really stupid dad joke about variants. I was talking to one of my friends, and we're talking about someone that has caught COVID now like 2 or 3 times. And so I was mentioning to him, like, it's not comic books. You're not trying to go get all the variants like you do in a comic book. You're not supposed to go get all the variants of COVID.
You try to collect them all.
It was such a nerdy joke. Like, I was embarrassed for myself. I'm like, I thought it was so funny, but then I was like, that's the nerdiest joke I could have ever come up with.
Depends upon your audience, I guess, right? If you sit here, I'm laughing about it.
Yeah. But I was just like, they're confusing variants, Go get all the variants for, Marvel comics, but don't go out and get all the damn COVID variants. But anyway.
I didn't understand variants in the comic book industry, not virus variants. I get those, but I didn't until, I asked about it. What's the deal with all these variants and why? So some people say it's a cash grab by the publishing houses, right? And it kind of is, because they want you to buy 2 issues of each 3, 4, 5 ish, whatever it is. But the way I see it, it's a way for other artists to express the same idea in their own style. Yep. And I think that's really cool, giving more artists room to explore a character.
Yeah, I think Marvel had been doing or has been doing some cool stuff with their variants. And so, obviously there's a formula. Like, your main cover is going to be, the formula is going to apply to it. There's rules and guidelines, right? They have been in the comic industry for a while, so they know what they need to do for a main cover. But then for the variants, you see people are able to be a little bit more creative, come up with different ideas. We had, they've done like hip hop album cover variants that are like the characters are replicating famous CDs or album covers of hip hop artists. And they give opportunity to maybe artists that aren't given the main cover, the opportunity to make a cover for a big book. And so I think it's cool. I mean, there's an artist by the name of Peach Momoko, I think is how you say her name. She's a Japanese artist that I've been collecting all the variants that she does. She has a very distinctive style, and she's done a lot of variant covers for Marvel. And I picked them all up just because, like I said, the cover in itself is a work of art. And it's in a style that is not necessarily like what Marvel always puts out. And so it's a great opportunity to see, the cover in a different way. Obviously, they are making a lot of money because I'll go out and buy 8 different issues of the same book. But I find enjoyment out of it. Some other people buy Starbucks coffee. I go and spend, hundreds of dollars on variants. So,
it's fine. Got to get all the variants. Like you said.
Got to catch them all.
And with that Pokemon reference, we'll sign off for the day. I really understand now, I think more so the power of comics in the art realm, because there are a few artists who I go out and, like, I bought the Hawkeye book, or I'm looking into buying Iron Fist, and then all the Scarlet Witch covers that David Aja did, because his artwork to me is just wow. So you, collecting them now, and hopefully I will have them displayed because art needs to be displayed. So
my geek room has definitely been overtaken or overtook by all my comics and photography books. I am equally obsessed with photography books and comic books. So I have literally everywhere books of all types around, and it is definitely an obsession, and I have to get a better a way to organize it, because it's getting out of control. Yeah. So, and then especially with like the action figures too on the walls, it's a lot, but I like it. It's I can't obviously afford, to buy my favorite art by some of my favorite artists. I'm not going to have like a Coon's art installation in my bedroom. But I can have, all the comic book issues by my favorite artist. So that's what
you
I
can
do.
put the best way to organize it is to get a box, put everything in there, seal it, write my address on it, and then ship it to me.
No, that's funny.
And then, you don't have to worry about it. I'll take care of the organization for you.
Yeah. Yeah. An interesting actually thing happened before we set off, because I thought it was, I don't know, it was interesting. I was at one of our local comic book shops with a friend that came down from LA, and we were looking at action figures actually, and we left, went to another comic book store. As we're at that comic book store, the manager picks up the phone. The first store got robbed. Someone came in and just grabbed a bunch of slated comic books that are in like the plastic and have been graded, and which are typically much more expensive. Sometimes hundreds of dollars.
Yeah,
and ran out with them. And the manager of the second comic book shop said, oh, I think we saw this suspect, at our facility, our building earlier today. And, I'm listening as I'm like perusing the comic books. And I'm like, oh, wow, like we just missed this like takedown at this comic book store. And I was like, what an odd thing to do. Like, who goes and steals comic books? I mean, they are valuable, but like, where are you going to go with an armful of comic books and try to resell, or I don't know what their end game is. So then we go back to the original comic book store because we decided to buy one of the figs that was there. And we're talking to the manager, and he's like, yeah, did you we just got robbed? And we're like, yeah, we were at this other store. We overheard the conversation. As we're there, the cashier gets another call from a third comic book store. That same person goes and robs them. And so apparently there's this comic book bandit in San Diego that's out stealing, highly valuable comic books. And it's so sad because with my friend, he was deciding whether or not to buy this action fig online or at the store. And I said, you know what, buy it at the shop, because we don't have a lot of small businesses, right? Like we have to support local businesses, especially comic book stores, because there's not a lot of them out there anymore. And a lot of people are doing digital formats of comic books. A lot of the comic books in San Diego, the shops have closed. And so I'm like, buy it there, help support it. And he did. But it's so sad to see that someone is like out robbing them. Like that's their livelihood, their store, their passion for collecting. And so it was kind of a drag to see that there's that. So hopefully that person gets their comeuppance soon and they get caught and arrested. But I did think that it was funny because I told the manager, I said, imagine this guy going into jail with like killers and convicts. Hey man, what are you in for? Oh, I stole a whole bunch of comic books. Okay, that's not really going to set you up for success in the penal system, but I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Like, you're going to have to lie and say you like killed someone, or I don't know. Like, that's not the story you want to tell other crooks or convicts.
No, I don't think so. I don't think
I'm in because I stole a Spidey comic. Anyway,
I just hope he gets caught. That's all I want.
I really do. Yeah. It just like, one, I already hate thieves, but like a local comic book store, like, come on, like yeah. And the poor girl, the girl that was working is like this like 5'4" young kid. And, she was kind of freaked out because he ran behind her and grabbed, and she didn't know what was going on. And just like, really, dude? Like,
and I think the people that pay the most are the normal consumers, the normal people who, because now there's going to be either a price bump or there's going to be more precautions in place. They're just more of a hindrance to us, and as just civil people who just want to go buy a comic book. Yep. Now everything's going to be behind glass barriers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole fun of going to a comic book shop, like perusing their comic books, like walking around, like not really knowing what you want, but then maybe finding like some little gem. Imagine how horrible it would be like behind glass or locked up, and you can't open them, you can't touch them, you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it just and fortunately, I think it's a very close-knit group of people, of nerds that are in San Diego that like I said, they were calling each other as it was happening and kind of warning each other. And I saw it in some of the Facebook groups that I belong to that are comic book collectors. And they're out there like, okay, this was the description of the person. Like, this is what happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So hopefully they will get caught. And it's just unfortunate, but that was like one of the most exciting things that happened this weekend. I was caught up in the comic book roundup.
Heist of 2022. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, right. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week, for joining us, for hanging out with us. Please join us in the conversation in the comment box or on our Twitter or wherever else you find us on social media. We always want to hear from you and let's move this conversation forward with all the topics that we talked about today. And, give us your take, give us your 2 cents. And, we appreciate hearing it.
Like and subscribe.
There you go. Like and subscribe. See you, everyone.
Thank you.